Good morning from what is known as, and what is probably deservedly known as, the greatest setting in college football, Husky Stadium in Washington, Seattle, Washington, to be specific, home of the Washington Huskies, site of today's matchup between the number one Ohio State Buckeyes, number unranked Washington Huskies. True professional, really played that off smoothly. It was great.
Which number again, Tom?
Number unranked. The Huskies coming in 3-0, coming in with some very shining stats, but not having really been tested yet. They will be tested today by the Ohio State Buckeyes. We normally do this, and this field's behind us. It's the most exciting thing. No. The field's great. The stadium's very impressive. It's over there. We may show it to you a little later on, but Lake Washington behind us, it is an incredible setting here.
I feel like we're in the way.
It really, we should just stand off to the side.
The mound over there.
Yeah.
But it's very pretty. It's lived up to the expectations and the hope and the hype.
For sure. And I have a behind-the-scenes video I shot walking around the stadium earlier and giving you a look at sunrise over the lake, which was incredible this morning. We'll get that posted to the YouTube channel a little later on today. So there you go. Reason number one to make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. All right, so there you go. Scenery talk done for at least a moment. We may come back to it later, but let's talk a little bit about the game. This is the first road game for Ohio State. This is certainly going to be, this is not like ease into it like they have at some points in the past where they've opened the season at Indiana, pre-Kurt Signetti, Indiana a couple times. So it's like, okay, the stadium's going to be half Ohio State fans and probably not entirely full. And the team's not going to be very good. This is going to be a pretty good test for Ohio State in terms of travel distance, volume of stadium, and some of the skill talent on Washington.
Yeah, this will be the biggest road opener since 2016 when they went to Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
I do not count the TCU game because that was a neutral site where Ohio State fans could get tickets. This is going to be an interesting one to see how many Ohio State fans have made it. There are, there are plenty in the area, but it's also one that the Husky fans don't want you to give up. So I'm very excited to see this. And yeah, you've got to be ready to go. But they were ready to go in the season opener against Texas. You assume they'll be ready to go against the Huskies because they prepared well the first time. You just expect them to prepare well for the second time. However, I think this is a more difficult offense to prepare for, a better offense than what they saw against Texas.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, this is Texas week one just looked a little out of sorts, and the talent for Texas is probably better. This is going to be this. Arch Manning just didn't look like you were sort of expecting Arch Manning to look. We'll see what Damon Williams looks like, because this will definitely be the best defense that Damon Williams has faced this year. He played against Oregon last year. That was a game that we watched in the lead up to the Rose Bowl, and you saw flashes, but he was a true freshman. So now, second year, okay, you've got a second-year quarterback for both of these teams that's going to be facing one of their bigger tests of the season. In terms of the crowd noise, how does that impact Ohio State today?
Yeah, well, they've been practicing with noise all week long, 2 weeks long now since the Ohio game. So they've been working on the silent count, silent cadence, and not involving noise, basically. And so much noise that you just learn to ignore it and learn to operate without it. And so that's the expectation, is that's what they'll start out doing, because I don't expect them to think, hey, that first drive, let's just see if we can hear. No, they're going to plan on not being able to hear. And then if things go well, they'll be able to hear later on. So that's going to be that'll be the target. But the initial mission is operate silently.
And when we talk about silent count, the way that changes things for the offense is the offensive linemen no longer have the advantage of knowing the snap count when the defense doesn't, because the offensive line is basically, they're looking for when is the ball snap. So they're going to see the ball snap at the same time the defense sees the ball snap, as opposed to being able to have that just split second of, I know that we're going on two, but you don't know that we're going on two, so I can go right on two, and you've got to go two. Oh, they're moving, then you go. It's just a little bit of a difference, but pass rush-wise, that can make a difference. We have seen false starts as an issue. You go to Ohio Stadium, they give the crowd a Buckeye leaf on the scoreboard every time the opponent has a false start, because that's one of the things that a loud crowd can potentially cause. This will be a good test, I think, for Austin Searveld and Philip Daniels at the tackle spots for Ohio State.
For sure, and there's a reason why Ryan Day, before the Texas game, said, hey, we want the crowd to create a silent count. We don't want Texas to be able to hear, because it is a disadvantage. And so there, Ryan Day is like, we can't make this. We've got to take advantage of this disadvantage, basically. And yeah, but when you're these tackles, you're out far. you're looking inside to see when things are going, you're immediately at a disadvantage. And so you've got to recover and then operate. So it's a difficult task for any of the offensive tackles. So I keep saying I'm fascinated to find out about this and this and this.
Yeah.
But this is a good one as well. I think, fortunately for Ohio State, the pass rush with Washington, at least outside, has not been great yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Washington defense has been okay, but not incredible. The Washington offense, 21 straight non-kneel down possessions, they have scored points, and out of the 21, 19 were touchdowns. So that's about as good as you can do it. The defense has been okay, but the defense has some questions. The defensive line has been fine. Not remarkable, but fine. Linebacker Buda Alukta, he's out for an extended period of time, according to Jed Fish. It was, the press conference on Monday, it basically was, he's not playing this week, and it may be a while. So you get the sense that's probably maybe months, not weeks, not days, certainly. So that's one question. How are they going to replace him? The other question is corner Takario Davis, because Ephesians Prysock on one side, 6'4", 6'4" Ephesians Prysock, got to give him his the salutation at the beginning, like Mr. What you can do Mr., Mrs., Ms., or 6'4", and he is 6'4" Ephesians Prysock on one side. So you feel reasonable about him. 6'4" Takario Davis on the other side. It sounds like, according to Pete Thamel, he is doubtful to play today, and that might be a real game changer for Washington.
Yeah, I think it is, because him not being out there last week against Washington State was a clear issue, because they moved nickelback Leroy Bryant and outside. They also tried other guys outside, including a true freshman was out there, 6'2", 6'3", true freshman.
Mm-hmm.
So they love their tall corners. It just moves everybody up a spot, and they don't necessarily have that depth right now to move everybody up a spot, because the third guy involved in replacing Takario Davis is like a redshirt freshman safety/corner. So none of this is ideal. And Ryan Walters, defensive coordinator, said earlier in the week, if Takario can't go, there's things they can't do that they would like to do. So all this is not good news.
Right. Yeah. If Takario Davis can't go, that puts, number one, young guys, number two, guys who are either unproven or, Leroy Bryant did not have a good game last week against Washington State, to the point that Jed Fish got asked about him at Monday's press conference. And the question was essentially like, so what do you say to a guy who had a game like that? And it was, if you're getting asked about in that kind of context, if the reporter starts the question with the like, hey, how does he do it? Like that is not a good indication. And the skill level of the outside talent for Ohio State, I don't, no disrespect to the wonderful Cougars of Washington State. I'm guessing the Ohio State wide receivers are going to be considered better than Washington State's, and no shade on Zevi, what's his name, from Washington State, but I would think, I think Julian Sayin is at least as good as, safe to say. So this is going to be a challenge.
He was impressive. He was tough.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how things go, and Julian Sayin handling all of this. We'll get to. We'll talk about that a little bit, but
yeah. And we have some questions about injuries. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, we're going to hit the super chat from Mike Farino. How's it going, guys? Do you agree that a road environment like today will more affect the offensive line than the QB? We are a very experienced offensive line, so no reason to worry there.
Perfect segue into the whole QB situation as well. I do think this impacts the offensive line more than the quarterback. Mm-hmm. Quarterback is just operating with his eyes as much as anything else, but he can be obviously impacted by the offensive line not doing well and creating some issues, and then also putting them behind schedule with the false starts. Now it's 2nd and 15 or 2nd and 12. Do I need to be more aggressive in picking up 8 or 9 yards, where if that wouldn't have happened, I could have just dumped it off for 3 or 4. So changes the quarterback in that way, where it's like, now I've got to make up for those 5 yards that the offensive line just cost me. But in terms of like him being rattled or anything, he wasn't against Texas. He was the calm quarterback in that game compared to him and Arch. I don't expect Demond Williams to be rattled in this one. I don't think that they're going to be like, once again, Julian Sayin is the calmer quarterback, but we haven't seen anything yet from him that makes me think he's going to be too much for him.
No, when your first career start is on national TV against the then number one team in the country, that's about as big a stage as you can have a first start on, outside of like a Cardale Jones type first start. So, and that one went pretty well as well. So I think they are at the point now where they were very clearly trying not to ask too much of Julian Sayin in that first game against Texas. Now you get the sense they're probably feeling a little bit better about him, and you're probably going to be a little more comfortable putting things on him. to try and do a little bit more. I'm fascinated to see if he throws an early interception, then what? Because that's entirely possible. And then does that completely change the approach, or is it just, well, all right, don't do that again?
Yeah, and he's bounced back from his interceptions, and he didn't throw one against Texas, so it's hard to judge. Like, yes, I can bounce back against Grambling State as well.
Yeah.
But on the road, I wonder, because we saw it last year, like at Penn State. Will Howard, it's fine. 10-0, throw an interception, pick six or whatever. Can Julian Sand do that same thing? If there's a pick six out here and it's 10-0 in the first quarter, this place is going to be going crazy. But so is Beaver Stadium. But Will Howard is the fifth-year senior leader. All of that kept everybody calm. Can Julian Sand keep people calm, or do other people have to do it?
Well, I mean, he sure looks calm. What was the tweet that they put on the scoreboard? Something looks like he's listening to Maroon 5 through his headphones or something during the game. I mean, he gives off the vibe of, sometimes it's the intense quarterback. Mm-hmm. He gives off the calm, in control, in command, no worries, all good, we've been here before kind of vibe. Yeah, this is going to be a challenge. It's not that they haven't faced a challenge, but this is going to be a different type of challenge, I think. One of the questions, and we'll get to, we got a super chat here we got to get to from Mike Farino. Damon Williams might get a little bit rattled after being hit a few times by Arvell Reese. What's interesting is we've seen Damon Williams, we've talked about this a bunch. He's not someone who slides. He runs a lot. He is not someone who slides. He's not a run out of bounds quarterback. That's great. Like, that's tremendous courage. It's also not something that I think you can do all season long. That feels like something that's going to catch up to you at some point. And we have seen Arvell Reese loosen a few people's fillings this season with some hits in space.
And I think you mentioned maybe last week while we were watching Washington games, you dropped a Corby Jones.
Oh yeah,
reference that certainly all ages would remember. But even I can't remember if it was Jed Fish or the offensive coordinator this week was asked about this very thing. Like, don't you want Damon to slide more? And they're like, well, we don't want to change his game, but it would be nice if he didn't get hit as much. If whether you go out of bounds, you give yourself up early, that's not really his style. But you have to assume they are preaching that a little bit in this one. Not because Ohio State's still big and scary, but we need you to stay in this game the entire time. You would preach the same thing if they were playing Oregon State, Washington State. Hey, you don't need to take on a linebacker. You can just go ahead and get your 7 yards. We'll fight the next down. And he is a battler. And he thinks he's built like Jonah Coleman. Like, I cannot be hurt. It's like, well, about 5'10", 185, 5'11", 190 is what he's listed at.
Yeah.
You are not unbreakable.
Yeah, Jonah Coleman is about 5'8" and I think 220 or so. So he is built like a brick. What?
I said he's a 1x1 Lego.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, he is a solidly built dude. He's someone you want to run him between the tackle 20 times. I think he'd be fine. Mm-hmm. You take 40 pounds off that frame and maybe add an inch or two to the height, and then that kind of changes the physics of the situation. So yeah, I think Washington would be much better off with Damon Williams running for 4 yards and sliding rather than 7 yards and taking a big hit. Staying on schedule is important, but also I don't think they want to explore the quarterback depth in this game.
Yeah, even if you don't get knocked out of the game, the hits will add up. Mm-hmm. Sore shoulder, how does that? Right. What does that make your accuracy? Yeah. It's just best to stay as clean as possible in this one for Washington.
I want to say good morning to our friend Sue. Good to have you from Northwest Ohio, lovely Northwest Ohio.
It does not look like this. I'm from Northwest Ohio. I'm trying to figure out what part of Northwest Ohio.
Lake Erie. It's like Lake Erie, right?
No. I mean, it is a lake. It's big, but not so much with the mountains in the background.
Can they match the high-level bridge from Toledo? No, they cannot. We've been on a lot of bridges here. I haven't seen one yet that matches the majesty of the high-level bridge.
This is also a little bit bluer than the Maumee River. No offense.
Slightly. So we've got Chadwick. I think we punched this up earlier, but we didn't actually read it. Good morning, gents. Not surprised by the amount of Buckeye fans in Seattle, but still blows me away how well we travel. I mean, there were a lot. There were a lot of Ohio State fans, and it's Friday, and we were kind of in touristy areas. So you figure the Washington fans have probably already been to the Pike Place Market and seen the original Starbucks and all that fun stuff. But yeah, there's always a lot of Ohio State fans, and Ohio State fans travel very well. I mean, 70,000 seats here. I would expect 10,000, 15,000 Ohio State fans. That's kind of like par for the course for an Ohio State road game.
Well, one thing is they're going to try to get OHIO going around the stadium. They might have to do OHIO,
Yeah,
because of the lack of fans in certain places.
yeah, it's laid out a little like Ohio Stadium, where it's a horseshoe with like a South Stands kind of thing down there. And at some point in a little bit, we'll maybe let you look out the window and kind of walk you around a little bit.
You mentioned the Ohio State fans. We were at a lunch spot yesterday, and I read every 30 minutes or so, somebody would yell out OH, and then you'd hear a bunch of IOs. It's like I'm sure people flying here did the same thing on the planes. But yeah, all of the touristy lunch spots and dinner spots, I'm sure last night, the drinking spots, a lot of Ohio State fans for sure.
Ohio State fans at drinking spots, you say? That would be a first.
Well, you can't BYOB necessarily on the plane.
Question, how are you guys enjoying the trip so far?
We did a lot of stuff yesterday.
Yeah.
It was very cool. I've just been looking forward to this particular day. But this was check it off the bucket list. I've not been out here before. And I didn't realize it was so hilly.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you think Seattle, and it's like, I mean, there are mountains around.
Yeah.
And you're familiar with Mount Rainier, but you don't think, Seattle hilly like San Francisco. But it's kind of, or it's we'll put it in Midwestern terms, hilly like Pittsburgh. Maybe. Yeah, it's like that. So yeah, but yeah, very very nice. Had a nice time, just kind of wandering around a little bit, and then stayed out in, I guess we're not doxing the team now. Stayed out in Bellevue. Got a chance. That's a very nice area, kind of just on the other side of the lake. Very very nice area, and yeah, had a good time. And campus very nice. The setting here is just incredible. The lake, stadium, it's the whole thing. It lives up to the billing for sure. So very excited to see the see the stadium full. It is they're doing a I don't know if it's purple out, but it's they told everyone to wear purple. I don't know what they're calling it, but they told everyone to wear purple. So should be quite a scene here. And it's a 12:30 kickoff, and they have been repeatedly telling people, get here early. Arrive early, be loud. So I'm expecting people to do both of those things. Just says, morning, gents. And Bill says, thinking about how Ohio State could lose, turnovers and special teams come to mind. How are the Huskies on special teams? Brady Gross is their kicker. He's been their kicker for 3 or 4 years now. 2 years ago, he was incredible. Last year, he was kind of shaky. We saw a couple times. I think he might have missed a field goal or two against Michigan last year, if I remember right. But he missed some kicks last year. This year has been very good again.
Got a big leg too, right?
He hit a 51-yarder against, was it Colorado State? I think.
Been a long time.
It was either Colorado State or Washington State, one of the ones we watched. And it was, good from 51, and it would have been good from 55, 50. Like, I think it hit the net behind. So, I mean, he's got a big leg. He's been good so far this year. Did they give up a long return last week against Washington State? Was it a punter and kickoff? I'm not remembering.
Yeah, I can't remember either. Well, it wouldn't have been a punt return.
Oh, yes, that's true. Yes.
As Ryan Day said, the punt reel is very short, just 2 punts. So I could not tell you what to expect from the punter in this game. But Ohio State needs to bring their special teams. Just don't be negative. Yeah, and then that's a positive.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. Other than that, I mean, yeah, turnovers are kind of one of the that's sort of the evergreen. Don't be -2, -3 in turnovers, and that that narrows the path to victory for Washington substantially. If the Buckeyes turned the ball over a couple times, you have seen that spiral for Ohio State on the road, not for quite a while, but against Iowa, for example, in 2017, how do you give up 55 points to a Brian Ferentz offense? Give them a bunch of short fields and give them a pick 6 or 2, and that can spiral pretty quickly.
But that was the same kind of start as Penn State last year.
Right.
But completely different responses.
Yeah, and that was a very veteran team last year. This is a team that's younger, but also somewhat. I mean,
a lot of people were on that.
They're a little. They saw what it took to get to the playoffs last year, and they are more battle tested than you would think, just looking at the years of experience on the roster.
16 new starters, but not necessarily new player.
Right. Philly Karen is, I'm sorry, Philly Karen. I've got to shout out that username. Michigan off this week, so nowhere for Blue to go this week. Yes, Sue says that looks like a beautiful mall. Me, yeah, I mean 100%. Yeah, I think I see Hollywood Casino down there somewhere. Yeah, it is quite a setting here. So the questions Chadwick wanted to know about Bo Jackson, and Andy asked any injuries in general. The availability report does not come out until 1:30 Eastern time, 10:30 Pacific time. I can do time zones. Broadly speaking, I certainly haven't heard anything about any injuries of real consequence. I have not heard anything about Bo Jackson won't be able to go today. The availability report again will come out later, and if there's something consequential on there, we'll update you guys. Right now, I don't think there's any reason to think that Bo Jackson will not be able to go today.
Yeah, we have no plans to update. So I expect everybody to be healthy. They bringing everybody, well, not everybody, but
right. Yeah, the travel roster is 73, I think. So you're gonna, there will be guys who are not here, but that's not necessarily because of injury. That's because the NCAA limits the number of players you can take on the road.
I was told on Tuesday, I think expect about 12 true freshmen to travel, which is a pretty good number. 4 running backs or so, and your 3 quarterbacks, and maybe 2 freshmen, maybe 3 freshman wide receivers. But yeah, no reason for concern right now. I know that there was a concern early in the week when Bo Jackson had a wrap on his knee.
Right.
Everything seems fine there now. 100%, 80%, 90%.
Right. And I don't know what order to expect the running backs in and what kind of mix of carries to expect, because, if he's not 100%, that probably changes things a little bit, because they've got 2 other guys they feel good about, C.J. Donaldson, James Peoples. This is not, oh boy, if you lose the first guy, you're really in trouble. They've seen some very positive things from both of those guys, and they all bring some different stuff. I'm guessing if you're going to see some blitzing, you're going to want someone who can really pick up those blitzes like C.J. Donaldson can. You may see more of him just because of pass pro today.
Yeah, and both C.J. Donaldson and James Peoples picked up blitzes on touchdown passes against Ohio. So obviously they're more experienced doing that than Bo Jackson. So maybe when you're dialing something up, you've got one of the 2 veterans in there.
Yeah, and you can't just have those guys are only in when. Because obviously that tips it off. It's it's like a pitcher tipping pitches. Like, well, if I see you hold your glove this way, I know it's a curveball. If I see C.J. Donaldson in there, I know there's a decent chance you're going deep. So they will have to kind of mix things up. But I think you're going to see all 3 guys. I think all 3 guys get at least 5 carries, and between 5 and 12 carries, something like that would be my guess.
And the hot hand has 12.
Yeah,
13, 14, depending on how things are going down the stretch.
Yep. Black Mulligan says, love the video showing yesterday showing the stadium area. Cool to see the setting. Yeah, you can find that one on our YouTube channel. I shot one this morning early, but right at sunrise, walking around the stadium, kind of started down on the field, walked up into the stands, kind of behind us, so you could sort of see the sunrise over Lake Washington, then came up. This is the first time I've ever gotten lost in the middle of one of these. I started walking up the ramp, and I'm like, well, I'm sure this goes somewhere. And so it's a little, it's all a little raw and unedited, but yeah, and then we'll end up in the upper deck and you get a really cool view of Lake Washington in the field and all that kind of stuff. So that will go up in probably, 20 minutes, 30 minutes after this one ends, and then we'll try and get over to the sailgating area and do something over there. We will see. Just right over there, you can kind of see some of the boats on the lake behind us. But yeah, very, very cool area, and definitely I would add this to the list of like Nebraska and the Rose Bowl for the Rose Bowl game, and what other place? Oregon for sure last year. This is kind of on that tier of you should go check this out. You should go see a game there in person at some point, because this is not just sort of like generic football stadium,
right? And it's also easier to get a place to stay.
Oh yeah. Flights and hotels and everything. Yeah, it was. This week, we changed our hotel this week because it was like, well, we're going to want to be more in this section of town than that section of town. And it was just, it wasn't cheap, but it's like you could get a perfectly fine hotel room for $200 in town the week of the game. So that's one of the nice advantages of being in a major city, is they're not overwhelmed. Yeah. This is not You're not going to West Lafayette where it's like, we have 3 hotel rooms and 2 of them are being booked for a different convention, unrelated convention. So yeah, this is definitely worth a trip at some point. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Ohio State defense. We've talked a bunch about the Washington offense. The Ohio State defense, I talked to Ross Fulton this week, and he talked about the fact that he's expecting more kind of penny front from them. So you get 5 guys on that line of scrimmage, and it's not 5 defensive linemen. Arvell Reese is probably one of those guys.
Yeah.
But you're going to see probably, if this feels like a stop the run first, contain DeMond Williams, don't let him get loose. Don't let Jonah Coleman get loose on the ground. Don't let DeMond Williams break the pocket. Don't let DeMond Williams get loose and pick up some yards on the ground. That feels like job one for the Ohio State defense today.
Yeah, and then when you have that penny front with the one linebacker, you also have Caleb Downs lurking around as also a cleanup linebacker, if you will. We know Arvell Reese has also spied from that edge spot as well, I believe. So he can do that. There's going to be some contained, but there will also be times where maybe you just see Arvell Reese back up and mirror DeMond Williams as that spy. I wonder how much Sonny will do it. I don't know. But yeah, the key is you're clogging up that entire offensive line with those 5 guys. But if somebody squirts through, you got to have, Sonny's got to pick the right gap, or you got to have Caleb Downs there to clean it up as well. Or, Jalen McClain is also on the team.
Right. And I would sort of prepare yourself mentally for, they're probably going to give up some 20-yard plays today. They have not, they've given up, one 20-yard run, or the longest yard, 19 against scrambling. So they haven't given up a 20-yard play on the ground. And I don't think they've given up one through the air or something like that. I mean, they really have not given up a lot this season.
Well,
the long one against Ohio, but they've been pretty good in terms of not giving up the big plays. This feels like a game where you're going to have a play where things kind of break down and it gets a little backyard football-y, and this is a Washington team that has players. We've talked about DeMond Williams, we talked about Jonah Coleman, we should talk a little bit about Denzel Boston, their wide receiver. Those are kind of the big 3 to know on offense for Washington. All 3 of those guys are people who are talented enough that, the Ohio State defense has been very good this year, very, very talented defense, very, very well schemed up by Matt Patricia. This is also a team that's talented enough that they're going to make some plays. Like, prepare yourself for the fact that the halftime score could be 17-14 or 17-10 or something like that.
Yeah, it could be the most points Ohio State has given up this season in one half. And the other thing to remember is all of these players are used to playing with DeMond Williams, so they know what happens at first may not be what happens when things break down. So they're used to playing with him when things break down. So scramble drill is nothing new for them. Jonah Coleman had 100 yards receiving against Washington State as an outlet guy, and like 95 of those were after the catch. So, just because you dump it off doesn't mean it's not going to pick up big yards, because getting him out of space, not that they're trying to, but sometimes he's just an outlet or a screen guy. He's very dangerous. But yeah, Denzel Boston's another 6'4" guy who can go up and get it, one hand, two hand, strong, physical. That's going to be a very physical matchup when it's he and Davis Nigbinosin getting together. I wonder if there might be some offsetting PIs, some things like that going on there. And then whoever has the other receivers, you feel like Ohio State has an advantage there as well.
Yeah, Ohio State's corners with Jermaine Matthews, Davis Nigbinosin on the outside, Lorenzo Styles, who is expected to be back. He was practicing all week, so there should be no concerns with an issue there with him at the nickel, and even Devin Sanchez at the dime. And then you've got the safeties we mentioned earlier, Caleb Downs, Jalen McClain. The depth there from Ohio State, I think, is better than the depth in terms of Washington's wide receiver rotation. I don't think we've talked about Washington's tight ends all week because they really haven't done much this season. I feel like there's been like one catch, 12 yards kind of things, which is fine, and maybe move the chains at some point, but that's not still anything that your Ohio State is, Matt Patricia's like burning the midnight oil to figure out how do you contain Washington's tight ends.
Yeah, no, when we do these rewatches of upcoming big opponents, the guys will pop up and they're like, we got to watch out for Gunnar Helm, Texas.
Right.
Like the tight ends will show up, and it didn't happen when we watched these 2 Washington games. Let me ask you, Tom, because I believe Chuck said this. Ryan Day is preparing this game as if it's a matchup game. Is it?
I don't think so, because I think a matchup game is really two very talent equated teams. I haven't gone and looked at the 247
Right.
talent index or whatever it is. Washington and Ohio State are not typically recruiting at the same level of the sport. Washington also had a coaching change a couple of years ago, so you lost some talent with the transition from Kalen DeBoer to Jed Fish.
He also brought in.
Jed Fish brought in a lot of the guys.
Everybody.
The two outside corners that we talked about. McAllister, the safety, he came in from McLaughlin. Sorry, yeah. Tanner McAllister is a different player.
Devon Williams was committed to
Arizona, yeah, and
Johnny Coleman played at Arizona.
McLaughlin,
Mhm.
he was a Northern Arizona player who Fish had sort of recruited and offered as a walk-on at Arizona. He ended up going to Northern Arizona. He's someone who, if he wears number 12, he's someone who you're going to want to keep an eye on because he's sort of just always around the ball. He had a couple interceptions last week. He's not someone who is going to be a first-round pick by any means, but he's just kind of always around the ball. He's the kind of guy that I'm sure opposing fan bases find very annoying.
Well, and if he struggles in this one, then the home fan base may find him annoying. But he's got a lot on his plate as sometimes that low deep safety in a single very high defense that Ryan Walters will play at times. But when you're like that, you've got to make so many plays. And I get calling it the Dylan Thieneman role at Purdue because that's what it was. Dylan Thieneman had 2 outstanding seasons at Purdue. I don't think that Alex McLaughlin is not Dylan Thieneman, but he's been okay so far this year. This obviously the biggest test to see how much ground he can cover because even on one of those deep catches that Leroy Bryant gave up, I think it was Ryan Walters said, well, he needed safety help and the safety help wasn't there. So was that a McLaughlin thing? Was that somebody else? It doesn't necessarily really matter because now that there's injuries there, it's not an ideal situation for the Washington secondary. And healthy, I don't think it was an ideal situation for the Washington secondary.
Yeah, that isn't a winning matchup for Washington, even if everyone's healthy. It's a deeply concerning matchup if they're not, and it sounds like they are probably not. Terry says, Tom being on the field, I'm curious to report on the crowd noise compared to Oregon. Yeah, I'm very interested in that. And we're gonna wrap up in a few minutes. We'll give kind of our score predictions. And then when we're wrapping up, I want to kind of let you look out the windows at the stadium in general and the roof above our heads. The roof is angled down towards the field. And that's kind of interesting because it means that if it rains, then the water presumably dumps right on the fans underneath there, which doesn't seem great. But what that does do is it angles all the noise back down into the stadium, directs it all right towards the field. It is the same general principle as Oregon. This is a metal roof. It is, we were outside earlier. The band was just the percussion folks were playing, and it was incredibly loud because the noise is hitting the roof and bouncing right back down at us. So, yeah, it is going to be loud in here. And it's up to Ohio State how long it stays that way.
Yeah. Well, they're like in the middle of the field. It feels like they're right below us.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yep. So let's give some thoughts on the game. I think this is one where Washington's talented enough to hang around. Mm-hmm. This could very well be a game at halftime. But when you get, especially with injury to Dario Davis, which again, Pete Thamel reporting is kind of doubtful. With that injury, I think you're going to see Washington's going to have to decide, okay, you don't have the guys to play the man coverage you want to. So now you got to play more zone. They probably don't have a real deep zone package because that's not what Ryan Walters really wants to do. So then you're sort of running out of good options at that point, and you can drop more guys. You can play 3 deep, but then you're probably going to get run on. I don't know that there is a situation where I think Washington holds Ohio State to 21 points and wins this game 24-21. I don't see the defense, especially with the injuries to Buda El, the linebacker, and Dario Davis, the corner. I am struggling to see a way that they hold Ohio State into the low 20s, which is probably where they need to be to win this game.
Yeah, I think turnovers, special teams, stealing possession somewhere in there is what it will take. Because I do expect Ohio State to score. You're going to need the crowd to cause some of those issues, which is certainly possible. But I think Washington needs a little bit of luck. And do they create that luck? Does it just happen? Is it a dropped pass here or there or whatever? They're going to need Ohio State's help with this one.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah. Terry says, with Washington having 2 overhang roofs, in theory, it could be twice as loud, giving the Dolby Atmos surround sound effect. What was was it Panasonic, the old magazine ad where the guy's sitting in his chair and the noise is like blowing him backwards? I feel like that might be, if Washington get off to a fast start, you might have that kind of situation on the sidelines today. Yeah, and Penn State Sports Talk says they have to be louder saying we'll be able to operate, which isn't
Yeah,
good. Yeah,
exactly.
they've got to do something to get Ohio State out of rhythm on offense. Because if you see Ohio State running the ball, it could get late early for Washington if Ohio State's able to run the ball. If they're averaging 5.5, 6 yards to carry, that's almost probably say goodnight, Gracie Tide at that point.
Right. This needs to be a situation where Ohio State is held for 2 or 3 yards to carry. I just don't necessarily see that happen.
Yeah, I don't know that we've seen that from the Washington defense too, that they can do that. So, score predictions, I went with 38-17 Ohio State, and I do think it's probably close for the first half. As I said, 17-10, 21-10, 14-10 at halftime. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But then eventually the talent just wins out for Ohio State.
Yeah, I went 34-24. I expect it to be, 17 points throughout. Not throughout, but like late. Washington maybe adds one late to make it closer, but I feel like Ohio State should be comfortable, even though this might be one where it's like it's only 7 points, but it feels like more.
Yeah.
Throughout the first half, something like that.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to give you a look around the stadium right now as we, sorry about the audio. The door keeps opening next to us. And then as we said, it gets loud real quickly. So, all right. So we're going to give you a look around right now before we wrap things up. So here is the look out the window at Lake Washington. That is, you see the boats out there already. There is some sailgating going on. I see an Ohio State flag on one of those boats. So right there, that's the, and then in the foreground there is the Washington football practice facility and the Washington softball stadium. We'll kind of slide down here, and there's this is what I'm kind of comparing to South stands. This is actually East stands here in Washington, but kind of the separate thing from what is otherwise kind of broadly a horseshoe-shaped stadium. The east end zone there, and then we're over here. See the Washington band down on the field. And I mean, that's a long way down there. And as we said, it is still loud up here. You get a lot of noise up here. Walk down the press box here to let you get a look down in the front row before we wrap things up. Just so you can sort of see I'll tell you what, let's go on the other side. Calling inaudible. Gonna let you see the outside the stadium here. Very, very pretty area. You can see just Mount Rainier over there. I don't know if you can see it. Let's see this window. It's hard to see because it's in the clouds over there. But yeah, Mount Rainier right there on the other side of the highway, and the other side of the Lake Washington. You get the boats rowing there, the Washington rowing team there. So we'll go over here. I'd like to wrap up. Here with a look out the front of the press box. Take it right down here. There's a look out the window at the field. So there you go. Washington Husky Stadium here in Seattle, Washington. Quite a setting for football. Quite a setting for what should be quite a game today. So we will be back after the game with our usual post-game coverage at Buckeye Huddle and youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Thank you guys all for joining us.